Terence Stamp is no longer with us. British actor, whose career spanned more than 6 decades, passed away at the age of 87. His death has been met with an outpouring of tributes from filmmakers, actors, and fans across the globe. Stamp was not only one of the most striking screen presences of his generation, but also a performer who reinvented himself multiple times, leaving behind a body of work that is as daring as it is unforgettable. From his breakout performance in the early 1960s to his iconic turn in The Adventures of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, and his final appearances in recent years, Stamp was always a figure who demanded attention. His career was defined by a rare combination of beauty, mystery, and intensity. When the news of his death broke, social media and press outlets filled with messages of remembrance. And one tribute in particular stood out, that of Stephan Elliott, the director of Priscilla. Elliott described Stamp in a way that captures the essence of the man. His beauty was eyes. This single phrase may be short, but it carries with it decades of admiration, memory, and truth. Terence Stamp's eyes were not just striking physically. They were a window into his craft, his courage, and his humanity. To fully understand why these words resonate so deeply, it is important to look back at his journey, the risks he took, and the impact he left on cinema. Terence Stamp was born in Stepney, London, in 1938. From the start, his life story was one of resilience and ambition. His father was a tugboat stoker who served in the Merchant Navy, and his upbringing was modest. Yet from a young age, Stamp showed both charisma and a sharp intelligence. He studied at the Webber Douglas Academy of Dramatic Art, and soon his striking looks and undeniable talent caught the attention of casting directors. His film debut in 1962, Billy Budd, immediately made him a star. Playing the innocent sailor Billy, Stamp brought both purity and depth to the role. His performance earned him an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor. At just 24 years old, he was being celebrated internationally. Critics noted not only his natural acting ability, but also his magnetic screen presence. The 1960s were a transformative decade in Britain, a time of cultural change, music, fashion, and film. Stamp became part of that cultural revolution, embodying the spirit of swinging London. He starred in films like Far from the Madding Crowd, Poor Cow, and Teorema. His work with Italian auteurs like Federico Fellini and Pier Paolo Pasolini further cemented his reputation as a serious artist. At the same time, magazines and audiences recognized him as one of the most beautiful men in the world. His sharp jawline, tall frame, and piercing blue eyes made him unforgettable. But Stamp was not content with simply being a symbol of beauty. He wanted to take risks. His choices in projects reflected a willingness to explore complex roles rather than play safe, conventional parts. This combination of beauty and courage is what made him unique in the landscape of 1960s cinema. In later decades, Stamp showed remarkable resilience by reinventing himself for new generations of audiences. By the 1970s and 1980s, he was no longer just the face of swinging London, but an actor capable of delivering iconic performances in blockbuster films. Perhaps his most famous role in popular culture came in 1980's Superman 2, where he played the villain General Zod. His authoritative voice, cold demeanor, and commanding presence made the character unforgettable. Even today, his line "Kneel before Zod" remains one of the most quoted in superhero cinema. Beyond Superman 2, Stamp appeared in Wall Street, Alien Nation, and Young Guns. Each role showed different shades of his artistry. He could play a ruthless corporate figure, a hardened alien police officer, or a grounding mentor figure. What tied these performances together was his ability to project authority and intensity. While never losing his enigmatic charm, colleagues often spoke about how much Stamp elevated a production simply by being present. Lou Diamond Phillips, his co-star in Young Guns, remembered him as a kind and generous figure who grounded the younger cast. Stamp was not just an actor who commanded respect on screen, but also someone who gave respect to those around him. The mid-1990s brought what many consider one of Stamp's most daring and career-defining performances. In 1994, Stephan Elliott cast him in The Adventures of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. The film was bold for its time. It's telling the story of drag performers and a transgender woman traveling across the Australian outback. Stamp was cast as Bernadette, a transgender woman grappling with aging, identity, and dignity. Initially, Stamp refused the role. As Elliott later explained, his hesitation came from fear. At that time, the world was still in the shadow of the HIV/AIDS crisis. LGBTQ representation was minimal, and stigma was high. For an actor once celebrated as one of the most handsome men alive, the idea of playing a transgender character seemed like a career risk. Stamp himself admitted he was terrified, but Elliott convinced him by pointing to his past. Stamp had worked with bold filmmakers like Fellini and Pasolini, directors who thrived on risk. Elliott reminded him that he had always been a man who took chances, and this was another chance, one that could define a new era of his career. Stamp eventually agreed, but he brought his fears into the performance. He described himself during filming as an old dog suddenly cast against type, yet he channeled that discomfort into Bernadette. The result was a performance that was both powerful and deeply human. Audiences and critics praised Stamp for his dignity, his vulnerability, and his ability to capture the struggles of a marginalized community with authenticity. Priscilla went on to become a cultural landmark, a film that not only entertained, but also opened doors for LGBTQ representation in cinema. And at its heart was Terence Stamp's fearless portrayal. After Stamp's passing, Stephan Elliott spoke candidly about what made his collaboration with the actor so extraordinary. He revealed how Stamp initially turned down the role out of fear, and how he eventually found the courage to take it on. Elliott described Stamp as a man who had always been willing to leap into the unknown. According to Elliott, what made Stamp so compelling was his mystery. He kept to himself, rarely sharing personal details. But when the cameras rolled, he came alive in a way that no one else could. He was an enigma, Elliott said. And then he'd show up, use the eyes, and turn everybody to jelly. This remark brings us back to Elliott's most striking tribute. His beauty was eyes. To Elliott, and to so many others, Stamp's gaze was his defining feature. His eyes carried intensity, sadness, wisdom, and magnetism. Whether he was playing a villain, a saint, or a vulnerable character, his eyes told the story in Priscilla. Those eyes carried the weight of Bernadette's journey. In Superman 2, they radiated menace. In Billy Budd, they conveyed innocence. Throughout his career, Stamp used them not just as a physical trait, but as an instrument of performance. Tribute captures this essence perfectly. Stephan Elliott was not alone in his admiration. Many others in the industry shared heartfelt messages after Stamp's death. Filmmaker Edgar Wright, who directed Stamp in Last Night in Soho in 2021, remembered his hypnotic presence. Wright recalled how Stamp once described a transcendental moment filming Billy Budd when he felt one with the camera. Decades later, Wright experienced the same thing while directing him. The closer the camera moved, the more powerful Stamp became. Wright described him as a true movie star. The camera loved him, and he loved it right back. Producer Gail Ann Hurd, who worked with him on Alien Nation, compared Stamp's eyes to those of Peter O'Toole. She noted that both men had the kind of gaze that left an indelible mark on audiences. Actor Guy Pearce, his co-star in Priscilla, shared a deeply personal farewell. He remembered their time filming, the laughs, the challenges, and the bond they formed. His message was filled with humor and affection, showing how Stamp touched those who worked closely with him. Lou Diamond Phillips, who acted alongside him in Young Guns, praised his artistry and his generosity. Phillips said Stamp elevated everyone around him, giving the younger cast members confidence and grounding. Together, these tributes paint a picture of a man who was not only a remarkable actor, but also a generous colleague and a deeply respected figure. What makes Terence Stamp's story so significant is not only the roles he played, but also the risks he took. He could have remained a safe symbol of beauty and charm, but he chose to challenge himself and his audience. His career spanned from art house cinema to Hollywood blockbusters, from heartthrob to villain, from cultural icon of the 1960s to LGBTQ+ ally in the 1990s. His influence can be seen in the generations of actors who came after him. Stamp showed that true artistry lies in authenticity and courage. He proved that even as times change. An actor who stays true to themselves and takes risks will remain relevant. For fans, his presence on screen was unforgettable. For filmmakers, he was a gift to the camera. And for his colleagues, he was a kind, generous man who elevated every project he joined. As the tributes continue to pour in, one line stands out above all. Stephan Elliott's words, "His beauty was eyes." In those eyes, audiences saw decades of emotion, charisma, and artistry. They reflected both the man he was and the characters he brought to life. Terence Stamp's passing marks the end of an era, but his legacy is eternal. His films remain, his influence continues, and his gaze still lingers in the minds of those who watched him. He was more than a movie star. He was a cultural icon, a fearless artist, a man whose beauty truly was in his eyes. Farewell to Terence Stamp. His presence may be gone, but his impact will never fade.